Hey guys, Kevin Clear here with a knife video for you. Let's start with this. If you remember a few weeks ago, I did a review of this knife, the Real Steel H6. This was a special edition liner lock with the layered G10, and I have really enjoyed this knife, and I've been carrying it and using it quite a bit. Now, I recently picked up, or more recently I guess, picked up this knife based on partially my experience with this one, and I have been equally impressed. More impressed in some ways and maybe not as impressed in others, but another very, very good offering. I really wanted to try something out from something else from Real Steel to just see if, you know, hey, maybe this one model is a fluke and they can't really do anything else very well. So I tried this, and again, I've been very impressed. Really, really nice knife. Excellent fit and finish, excellent functionality. You know, just a lot of things drew me to this knife, and I've been very, very impressed. Not disappointed at all in what I got for a fairly low price on this Real Steel T101. So let's talk about some of the specifics. First off, size and weight, which we always do. This knife is 8 3/8 inches overall. Almost 3 3/4 inch blade and almost 4 3/4 inch handle. Really, it's 11/16 on both of those. Okay, so very, very good for size, you know, right there in my wheelhouse. Just what I like to see. What's really cool about this is how long the blade is, almost 3 3/4 inches for a knife that is under 8.5 inches. So that's not usual. Normally, you're getting about a quarter of an inch less blade length in knives of that length. The other cool thing about this is the weight at only 4.7 ounces. So 4.7 ounces for a knife of this size is very, very good. Yeah, there are some knives that beat it, but the quality of construction on this and the amount of steel you're getting in the blade is really, really excellent. Okay, especially for 4.7 ounces. Now let's do some comparisons since we're talking about size. One of the knives that does beat it is the Paramilitary 2, and since this is a common knife and lots of people have these or are familiar, you can see how these two compare in size. The T101 is just a little bit longer, and the design means you're getting a lot more blade length. So you're getting a full 3 3/4 inches of blade length here, and you're only getting 3 1/4 here for a knife that's basically the same size. Okay, and people have often commented that the blade to handle ratio on this is not great. Obviously, we've got the H6 here. The H6 is maybe a fraction of an inch, you know, basically an eighth of an inch longer. But again, you're getting more blade length on the T101, which is pretty cool. Right now, I think you're starting to see what I mean when I talk about how well they've done with the blade length there. A knife that has about the same blade length, cutting length, I should say, is the Recon 1. And look how much bigger of a knife the Recon 1 is to get a cutting edge that's similar. And really the blade length is very, very close on these two knives. I do have one more to show you, and I brought this in for another reason. This is, again, similar blade size, but the point I want to make with this knife is this knife costs quite a bit more. Okay, but you're not getting as good a steel, you're not getting as good of materials, you're not getting as good a fit and finish. So this knife primarily is here to demonstrate just how good the Real Steel is doing in terms of their construction, their materials, their design, all of that. Very, very impressive. This is a Soft Trident Elite if you don't, because I don't think I said the name of it. So those are some comparisons to this knife. And it compares well literally to any one of those. Obviously the Para 2 has better blade steel, the Recon 1 has worse blade steel, and the other H6 has the same steel as this one. So there's some discrepancies in terms of steel, but otherwise very, very comparable knives. So what about that blade? Why don't we zoom in a little and we'll talk about some of the details on this 14C28N blade. Come on, camera. There we go. All right, so you can see the stonewash finish on that 14C28N blade steel. Really nice drop point here. It's a high flat grind. Essentially, it's going to function like a full flat grind. It is quite high. The advantage here is that because of the different grind, you're able to take this swedge and carry more steel out toward the point, which is going to give you a stronger, more robust blade steel. All right. It is sharpened right down to a very nice plunge grind, and it is done right. I can't tell you, you know, I've complained a lot. You've seen that, and most knife guys are familiar with the fact that a lot of companies don't do this plunge grind very well, and they don't sharpen that bottom portion of the knife very well. In this case, it's done exceptionally well. This blade, really, really nice. You got this nice swedge on top. 14C28N is a great steel that I don't think gets enough credit. Very, very impressive. It takes an edge readily, and it holds that edge very well. I would put it in a similar category to VG10 154cm. It may be not quite as good as those two, but it's certainly much superior, or far superior to the HCR 13s and AUS 8s that maybe you're used to in blades around this price point. Okay, so that's one thing that's really cool, is you're getting an upgraded blade steel for the same price as a lot of knives that are coming with those, you know, the Chinese HCR such and such steels. So that's a real win, and that's one thing that seems to be overall just the case with real steel knives. What about lockup and deployment? We'll back up a little bit for that. I will stay zoomed in a bit so I can show you lockup, but you can see very smooth. Thumb stud deployment works great. Flipper deployment works great. The detent is pretty well right where you'd want it for a knife like this. It stays in place. There's enough that you can get some pressure on that flipper and get it good deployment. It is a ball bearing pivot, so you can see it comes falling closed very nicely. Do that one more time. I know it goes a little out of focus there, guys. Sorry about that. So very good action on this knife. One of those knives that if you're, you know, a person who likes to flip your knife open and close over and over again like I am, you'll be able to do that with this and do so fairly comfortably. There is some jimping in here on the inside of the lock bar, and you can see the lock bar is right where you want it, guys. One of the things that we talk about a lot is early lockup. Now, with really, in my mind, early lockup on a liner lock should still have the full lock bar under the blade. Okay, it shouldn't be so early that it's just a corner of the lock bar catching the bottom of that blade. I like to see, you know, and this is at about 40% or so, and that's right where I think a liner lock should be. And I think the H6 is fairly similar. All right, it just inspires more confidence for me when I see, you know, the whole lock bar coming under, where let's say this is the lock bar. A lot of times you'll get this type of thing happening where only half the lock bar is actually under the blade. I prefer to see the whole lock bar there on a liner lock knife. They're both, you know what I mean, it's steel on steel anyway. You're not going to see a ton of wear, and I prefer to have a more stable, more secure lockup with greater surface area in contact than I would a really early lockup where it's not all the way under the blade tang there. So lockup is good, deployment is phenomenal, and I will say that this is just from the factory. Very smooth knife. Okay, deploys very quickly, very easily. So lockup and deployment are excellent, very good. And again, I feel like I need to keep saying this. I'm not used to seeing this level of quality at this price point. They are doing a really good job in terms of value for dollar. So lockup and deployment, excellent. Now, moving on to the handle, there are a couple cool things that I like. I like the gear pattern in the G10 backspacer. I like the texturing in the G10. They're nice thick pieces of G10, which, you know, sometimes a company, now this is kind of, we're moving past it a little bit, but even a couple of years ago when I was into, you know, when knives used to charge a premium for G10 is what I'm trying to spit out here. And not so much so anymore, but I like the fact that this has got lots of G10. The other thing that's really impressive, and maybe I'll have to zoom in here again. I don't know if it's going to be visible. Let me try to show you this. It's worth zooming in to see that. Let's see if I turn it, which way can I get some light going in there? Probably right around here is the best chance. One, notice that those are nice thick liners, but I'm trying to get you to see that they are heavily, heavily milled out. Okay, so if you look in here, if you could take the knife and look in, you would see these great big skeletonized holes cut out of these liners. So that's why this knife is able to have full stainless steel liners, but still come in under 5 ounces. You know, this knife, if they didn't do that, would be well over 5 ounces. So really, really impressive on cutting some weight out of this knife. I've really got to give them credit for doing that. Very, very comfortable to carry because of that. But still very tough and durable. Do have that nice G10 backspacer, and the grip on this, the pattern on the G10 is pretty well perfect, okay? Right where you want it. It's grippy enough, but it's not tearing your pockets apart or anything like that. Now, along those lines, does have the pocket clip here, which is left or right side tip up carry. I would have actually liked to see, you know, this clip exactly, only a rollover or deep carry clip instead of just this flat clip. It looks fine, and you can see the Real Steel Knife logo right there. Kind of nicely done. They haven't gone crazy with bannering all over the place. They do have the logo there. And the clip is reversible, but I would like to see it deep carry. Not the end of the world, and this is not a huge knife anyway. If you remember, it was, you know, here's a pair too, so you can see closed, they're very, very close in size, okay? So the handle is very nice, comfortable G10. I will say this, in a hammer grip, it's not perfect. It is ideal in more of a saber style grip, and this is how I use most of my knives, including this one. If you do switch grips, it doesn't work quite as well. Saber grip is definitely the favorite grip for this, the way this knife is designed. If you switch to a hammer grip, it's still fine, but it's just not quite as comfortable. Reverse grip is also good, okay? And that's generally knives that are kind of curved that way. A reverse grip works well. I will say the jimping here works nicely in the saber grip for your palm, but doesn't touch really anywhere meaningful in a reverse grip, okay? So, very comfortable, except it is limiting just a little in terms of how it kind of wants to be held, at least for my hands. All right, now, let's see if there's anything I forgot about. Talked about the clip. Oh, the lanyard hole. It is a tube lanyard hole, which is nice to see. And again, you're getting a lot of those little things in this knife for a great, great price point. If you're Canadian, Warriors and Wonders has a bunch of Real Steel knives, and that's where I've gotten mine. And you're going to be around between $50 and $60 for most of them, which is, you know, with the exchange rate being what it is, the same as around the $40 US that you're paying if you buy this in the United States. Let's see, Torx bit construction, I guess I should point that out. And I do kind of like the flat, flush screws on the other side, so that you can only take it apart from one side. Hopefully there would never be an issue with this starting to spin, because you'd have no possible option. But considering how well they've done everything else, I'm not really, really worried about that. So there you go, guys. That's my take on the Real Steel T101. Very nice, extremely good size, weight, and value on this knife. The reason I'm enjoying this company so much is I think it just shows that for, you know, $40 to $50, you can get a really, really outstanding knife that's doing things that you're not seeing from other companies, you know, for less than, more like 70 or 80 or even 100, okay? So great knife, really, really impressive, smooth as silk. That ball bearing pivot is really, really well done. That's my take on the T101 Thor from Real Steel Knives. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll talk to you soon.